Okay, it sounds like we're live now. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and welcome you to Maine. And you've heard from Stephanie and Linda before about seals. And I'm going to try to answer some of your other questions about seals here in the near future and look forward to having fun with you over the next hour talking about seals. Uh, I retired from the uh, University of Maine here not too long ago. And during those years, I've been working on seals here in Maine, also walruses in Alaska, and Antarctic seals. It looks like we've got a variety of questions popping up already, and we'll look forward to answering those. Remember, when you ask questions, no question's a bad question, and they're all good questions. And we look forward to talking to you about them. Uh, I got started in marine mammals because I'm afraid of heights. I was working with bears in Alaska, and we had a choice between bears and eagles. I couldn't climb trees, so I went ahead and worked with bears, went to polar bears, and then to go on to other places. So uh, that's where I came from. Went on from polar bears to seals, and then worked with harbor seals. Um, let me take a few of the questions. The first question, as moms have left the pups, is it normal for the pups to gather in groups while they finish their molting stage? Well, like a lot of questions, I'm not sure, but I would say that this is normal. They are gregarious. They like to get close to each other, and they will cuddle up to each other a little bit here while they're molting. Uh, the second question, will they head out to sea as a group, or do they do it by their lonesome self? What I know, they do it by their lonesome self. They go out to sea. They might go into the water, play around a little bit, come back up on shore after they've molted, and then go back out again. Sometimes they go into the water before they're molted completely, and you will find seals that'll show up that have white coats on some of the other islands in Maine in this time of the winter. The next question, when the seals return to the sea after pupping, do they remain in the area for a while, or do they feed or migrate to other areas along the east coast? Do they go north where it's colder? I presume you're talking about both the males and females. Once they've mated, they go out to feed, and they'll be gone for a little while, and then they will go back to look for molting sites, and usually those are sites where they get together and shed not just the hair, but the epidermal layer of the skin. So we've got those four questions asked already. Um, you can see as you're looking at the videos, primarily just pups sitting out there in various stages of molt. Uh, it's a nice sunny day out there. It's about 8 degrees and the wind's going about 20 knots. Pups probably will not come back. The question is, will the pups that we see here return next year if they survive? That's a good question. They'll survive. About 50% of them will survive. Um, they will survive, and then they will not come back for a couple of years because this is where pupping occurs and where mating occurs. And mating is a serious situation. You don't want to be in the way of a big bull if you're not there to have a pup. So how is age determined in gray seals? Gray seals The best way to determine age in a gray seal is to take a tooth and look at the layers of cementum in the tooth, and it's just like a tree with tree rings, and you can count the rings and go from there. The next question, when when will the island be empty of seals, in your opinion? We've flown over Seal Island a lot of times in the past, and back in the 90s, we used to fly over it several times a year. About February 10th or so, their last few stragglers of pups. Other than that, they'll abandon that site by then. Does this seem earlier season as far as pupping is concerned? We saw seals being born in mid-December this year. I'm curious to know what the normal pattern is. We used to think that about now was the best day to survey gray seals out in the ice or out in the wintertime here on the islands in Maine, that there were more pups now than earlier. So it does seem like this season is earlier. Question, I would like to know what their skin or fur feels like. Well, I've got a dog that's half border collie and half lab, and the skin of the adults or the molted pups feels a lot like that, maybe a little stiffer. The pups with white coats are fuzzy, and that is pretty neat to touch. Okay, next question. Can a seal have twins? If a seal has twins, that is something that gets published because very, and I'll put about 5 more varies on there. Seldom do you ever hear of a twin in any of the seals. Okay, how deep do seals dive? Depends on what kinds of seals you're talking about. If we're talking about gray seals or harbor seals, we're talking about 300 feet or so, maybe 600 feet deep. Okay, how can seals stay so warm? Could you explain why fat is such a good insulator? Oh, that sounds like a trick question. How can seals stay so warm? Well, they answered their question already when they said the fat layer. Seals have fat layer and then they have this fur layer as well, but it's primarily the fat that insulates the seal. And fat does not transmit heat from or cold, and so I guess I keep reading ahead to the other questions, so I don't know more than that is what to do with that question. What is the body temperature of a gray seal? They're warm-blooded, they're a marine mammal, they're a mammal, and so the body temperature is approximately about like ours. They have to keep that heat up. And in fact, they do a pretty good job of it. Sometimes when it's really warm out there on the islands in the wintertime, you might have seen some video where they might be holding up their flipper to aerate a little, or dump heat a little bit. They get too hot in the sunshine at times. A lot of seals do that. The sea lions, California sea lions, elephant seals will do that. I've seen walruses put their flippers up and dump heat as well. When is it too cold for seals? Well, we've done some surveys here on the coast of Maine, and when it gets down to about 10 degrees, we don't see harbor seals hauled out. We see gray seals hauled out, but not harbor seals. And so for a harbor seal, 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and they stay in the water. But wind also is important with that. It's just like with people, there's wind chill, and so you have to be careful with that. Okay, how long can seals stay underwater? Well, there are two kinds of dives. There's one where they go into air deficit or oxygen deficit, is called an anaerobic dive. And an anaerobic dive, they kind of push themselves and then they have to stay up longer afterwards. But most of them are ones where they don't push themselves and they can stay under, depending on what the kind of seals are, they can stay under from a couple of minutes. A harbor seal pup, when it's first born, can dive for about a minute or two, up to when they're weaned, 30 minutes. We have gray seal pups that have been out that should be diving up to about 30 minutes long. But generally, a seal doesn't push themselves to dive as long as they can when they're out there feeding. So it looks like the seals that we have out here right now are sunning themselves, uh, enjoying a good afternoon in Maine. Okay, I think I've caught up with some of the questions that have been popping up. Uh, I thank you for those questions, and if you have others, please don't hesitate. Uh, I've been out on Seal Island, uh, but it was in the summertime, and when I went out on Seal Island in the summertime, we had to be careful of the ordinance out there. I've been out to Green Island, which is near Bar Harbor in Acadia National Park, uh, and when I was out there, we were out there in the wintertime, and we put tags on gray seal pups. You've seen Stephanie talk about tagging pups. We put a couple of satellite tags on those pups. Those pups went into the water, stayed close to Maine, to Mount Desert Island, for about a month. Then they both went down to Cape Cod, spent the summer on Cape Cod in Chatham, Monomoy area. Then they went back to Maine, came up the coast of Maine, went across the Bay of Fundy and over to Nova Scotia, and spent the winter there. Their radios, the transmitters finally died in November, late November. Okay, I've got another question. Is it normal for the gray seal to give birth in breech, as in tails first, like the one we have showing on the Explorer rerun? Yes, that's normal for gray seals and harbor seals. Come out backwards compared to people. And I've never seen one. So this picture that you have on explorer.org is excellent and is unusual that you would see that. And I think you've been gifted a pretty neat video there. I just saw the shadow of probably an eagle fly over as we're looking at the video. The eagles were predating on or using the placentas, etc. Another question we have, we noticed a male fighting with another male. He lost that fight, then went to another male and was turned away by that male as well. Does this behavior seem like the unsuccessful male is probably a young male, since he kept trying to get near females, but the other males wouldn't let him? Or maybe he was older seal and is losing his position. I'm not sure whether he's older or younger. What you're interested in is, if you're a male, you want to be as big as you can and as aggressive as you can, so you keep the other males away. And if he wasn't quite as big, if he hesitated a little bit, then he was in trouble and he didn't get a chance to mate with a female. And so he could have been young and just testing his skills out, or he could have been older and not making it, and probably won't make it anymore. Not all the males mate with females. Another question is, do you know if there's a high population of eagles or large prey birds in the area during pupping season? Is this normal? We have seen eagles and ravens out there. You see gulls, pictures of gulls out there flying by as well. And so you do see eagles and out there. They're both adults and juveniles, and they seem to be feeding not only on the placentas, but once in a great while, their pup will die before it's weaned or while it's still molting, and then the eagles and the ravens will feed on those as well. Okay, from time to time, I've seen other females with pups appear to be looking out for another's pup as well, not feeding, but seem to be warding or moving another's pup away from a potential danger. Do they raise pups as a community, or is it just a rarity that I've seen? I think that's probably a rarity. Everybody is there for themselves, and so you're raising your pup, and the other pups they don't pay that much attention to. But at the same time, there are very many cases where a female will lose her pup, or maybe a pup that is really hungry and mom's not around right now will nurse them. And so you have sometimes shared nursing, but there's no social community involved as we would think of it, like with wolves or something like that. Do the pups see their mother again after they go in the water, or is it after they are weaned? Is it goodbye forever? It's goodbye forever after they're weaned. They won't see their mom. They'll never see their dad again. And if they do, it's just by chance. They probably won't recognize each other as well. The next question, do we know the area that the pups and seals will go to next? Well, we do have those satellite tags from the first two seal pups, and we have that description. Generally, we have in all seals, it tends to be where juveniles wander. And so the first year they wander a lot. And for example, we tagged harbor seal pups and with tags back in the early 80s. One harbor seal pup showed up in Cape Cod in June, or about a month after he was born. Another one was caught out at sea by a fisherman. Another one showed up in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, in about the same time period. And then in October, we had one show up in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So they do spread out, and gray seal pups do the same as well. The other seals, the adults and subadults, are probably not ranging as far as that, but we do know that we have one population of gray seals here in the Gulf of Maine going from Sable Island. Some of the Sable Island seals go clear into the Gulf of St. Lawrence. And so we've got those, and those in Cape Cod area and those in Maine are all the same population. What predators are currently out in the Atlantic waiting for the new pups to go out to sea? Well, their biggest predator, and really their only predator around here, are sharks. I say that because we don't have as many killer whales around in the Gulf of Maine. Killer whales aren't as abundant in this area. If you go further north, yes, they are, but not right here. So it's sharks, and the green sharks and great whites, and a variety of other species. I've been told once that one of my fellow professors from the University of Maine went out diving off the coast of Maine, and they were in a dive cage because they were going to look for sharks, and they were getting ready to dive, and a harbor seal pup came up to the boat and tried to get in the boat to get away from the sharks. Then the question, why do gray seals interest you? Are there particular characteristics about gray seals that you find more interesting than the other species? Gray seals are of interest to me because they weren't here for a while. Now, we know that they were here back before white man came. We have native Indian middens on North Haven, which is close to Vinyl Haven and Seal Island here, that 1,400 years ago they were catching gray seals and harbor seals for food. So we know that they were here. We, as fishermen, etc., we had bounties on seals. We had bounties on gray seals in Massachusetts as late as 1964. And you can find some literature in the 60s where they say we haven't seen a gray seal for a long time. We haven't seen gray seals. We didn't see gray seals. I started surveying in 1980. We didn't see gray seals. Once in a great while, we'd see one starting at about 1985, 86. We saw very few, and now we're seeing a lot. We looked at some of these islands, for example, Seal Island and the island near Mount Desert Island or Bar Harbor. And in the 90s, we didn't find any until 1994. And then we found a few, and a few more, and a few more. There was a researcher by the name of Valerie Rowe who kept looking for gray seal pups, and she would go flying down in Cape Cod area, etc., and she would get excited if she saw one gray seal pup. Now we have a whole bunch of gray seal pups. So what's exciting about this, what's neat about gray seals, is the population is increasing, and they're expanding or reoccupying a range that they weren't in before. And we've got a question, kind of a follow-up to that. Why do you think that the gray seal population is recovering? Well, gray seal numbers changed drastically. And we have gray seals here originally, so they're part of the picture, they're part of the ecosystem. And we'd want to have them there as part of that ecosystem. So we have a gray seal population that's recovering. We don't know what it was like, but early explorers here, the French explorers used to say that the water was teeming with cod and seals. So we had both seals and fish at that time. Population, when I say recovering, what I'm saying is that it's coming back. We don't know how many gray seals there are going to be, but they're competing with other seals more than likely. Our harbor seal population was increasing from 1980 through 2001. We did a survey in 2012, and it looks like the population is stable or dropping a little bit. That's the harbor seal population. Whether that's partly because of the increase in gray seals, scientists will be arguing about that over the next several months and years. So is it a positive sign? It's a positive sign if you want gray seals to be part of the ecosystem. It's a negative sign if you want gray seals not to eat the fish that you want to catch. So the seals create controversy at times. We have seals that get into aquaculture pens here in Maine where they're trying to raise salmon. And when they raise salmon in these nets out in the ocean, seals get into them, especially if there's wind that will, or a storm that will break the net down. Here is a question, I'm not sure what the correct answer is. Of the different species, which seal species is the oldest? I'm presuming what they mean by that is most ancestral, and I don't have the slightest clue what that would be. Uh, we've got two primary kinds of seals. The ear seals that, like the elephant seal, or not the elephant seal, ear seals like the sea lions, and uh, then you have the true seals, which are like what we're seeing here, the harbor seals and gray seals. Then the walruses are off by themselves someplace. So you've got three different families of seals, and they originated all from one particular ancestor. I've got a question here. When the mothers pet their pup, is that a bonding touch or does it also serve another purpose? It's a bonding touch. It also serves, you notice the pups are scratching themselves some too. So if you're molting or getting ready to molt, you itch. And when you're itching, you scratch it. So I would say that when the pups are scratching themselves, that's because they're itching. When the mothers touch the pup, there's probably more bonding than itching. Uh, do the do the pups usually come back to the same island of birth the next year, or do they go elsewhere? They probably stay at sea. The pups might come back when they are adults to mate on this island. More often than not, they do come back to the same island, but once in a while they'll explore and go out to other islands uh, and establish new colonies. That's why we have colonies of gray seal pups in Cape Cod area, on Seal Island, and on Green Island near Acadia National Park. They didn't used to be there, and now we have them. So usually they come back, but sometimes they don't. We have seen a branded seal mother there, and Stephanie has talked to you a little bit about the branded seals came from Sable Island. And one of the branded seals that came from Sable Island that you saw on the Explore video was a pup that was branded, and her mom had been branded too. So we know that that seal was probably about 30 some years old. Okay. Uh, Glancing at the video again behind me, look over the top of my computer at another one, and looking out, it's I don't see many adults out there. It looks like they've abandoned place. So it looks like a lot of that uh, is just pups out there. Okay, I've got a question here. I live in Maine and spend a lot of time out on the water. Harbor seals, harbor seals spend a lot of time slowly cruising around the base or sunning themselves on a ledge. However, a couple of times I've seen a group of 10 to 20 seals jumping out of the water like dolphins. This seems like a really rare event. I wonder if you would know why they do this. Do you think they're trying to escape a shark, or perhaps it's some sort of a bonding activity for the group? Good question. I'm not sure. I can tell you what I've seen this. When we were first trying to learn how to catch harbor seals, we were going to tag them and find out where they were going. We tried all sorts of different methods. And one of the methods that we tried was to put people into wetsuits and snorkel up to the seals on a ledge and try to sneak up to them that way. The seals saw the snorkelers right away and got excited about it more than anything. And so they were jumping porpoising out of the water like that. Just to me, it looked like they were just excited about, hey, this is kind of weird. Let's find out what's going on. And they got excited about it. So I've seen them do it then. I have not seen them do it trying to escape something, because when I've seen them do it, it's been in very shallow water, like 10, 15 feet. So I don't think it's a bonding activity at all. I think it's that they're just excited. Okay, we're panning around on the pictures, looking into the sun. A lot of rocks. Okay. Another question. I saw that you studied walruses. Could you talk a little bit about how, why they have evolved such long tusks? Do the tusks grow for their entire lives like rodents? Good questions. Uh, why have they evolved such long tusks? The tusks are secondary sex characteristics. That is, they're used to advertise that I'm big, I'm strong, and I'm ready to mate, etc. Both males and females have those tusks. So a lot of people compare walruses to elephants because walruses, both sexes have tusks, elephants both have tusks, and it appears that both walruses and elephants are matriarchal societies. That is, that the females, ants, all stick together so that you have closely related groups of females, and then the males are kind of drift in and out for mating. Their tusks do grow their entire lives, and the Eskimos can tell how old a walrus is by how long the tusk is. Now, there are two different species of walruses. There's or subspecies. The one in the Atlantic Ocean is the Atlantic walrus, Pacific Ocean, Pacific walrus. Pacific walrus has much longer tusks and than the walruses in the Atlantic. Okay, so they do grow for their entire lives. Then another walrus question. Where along the U.S. do they breed? Where do most of the large populations gather? Walruses, the males and the females separate except at breeding time. They're very seldom do you see males in with the females other than during the breeding season. The breeding season is in January, mating season is in January, and they'll mate either side of St. Lawrence Island in the Bering Sea, and then they will, once they're mated, the females go up through the Bering Strait and into the Chukchi Sea and feed. They feed on in the shallow waters there. They're feeding on mollusks, primarily a clam. So they'll be doing that. And the males will feed in Bristol or in Bristol Bay and some of the bays on the Russian side of the Bering Sea and spend time pulling up and resting and regaining body condition so they can go the next time. With the retreat of the ice, so there's not as much ice in the summertime. The females don't have as much ice as to work from, and so we're now seeing seals, well, walruses on the beaches on the U.S. side above in the Chukchi Sea, where we didn't used to when I was working with walruses. We didn't see them on the U.S. side, but we'd see them on the land on the Russian side. Okay. Could you talk about some of the big differences between some of the various seal species? Any particularly cool adaptations they have? Good question. Big differences between some of the various seal species. Biggest difference between eared seals, like sea lions, California sea lions, or stellar sea lions, and those like we're looking at here, the gray seals, big differences in how they raise their young. True seals, like we're looking at, nurse their young for a very short period of time, and then they're left to their own devices, and they molt and swim away. Gray seal mothers will stay here on Seal Island for the entire time they're nursing, and they're taking their fat, moving it to the pup through the milk. So their milk is very rich in fat, something on the order of about 40%. They're not the world's record holder. The hooded seal nurses for 3.5 to 4 days, during which time the pup doubles its weight. Fat content of the hooded seal milk is something like 60% fat. So true seals nurse for a short time and they're done. The eared seals, like the California sea lion, nurse, go to sea, come back, nurse again, go to sea, come back and nurse again, etc. They have a longer nursing period. The pups stay with their mom for a longer time. Now, there are exceptions to this, and one of the exceptions is a harbor seal. The harbor seal and the ring seal are true seals, but they're so small that the females do have to feed while they're nursing. So we will see harbor seals take off and go feed and come back. A female will come back and nurse their pup, or they'll take the pup with them. And there's some recent research that shows that harbor seal pups will go to sea with their mom and actually nurse out in the water. So that's pretty cool. Do you have an opinion on why it is that gray seals have chosen Seal Island to establish their breeding colony? People think that gray seals prefer islands that are remote, close to open ocean, and this is where Seal Island is. It's an island in the outer part of Penobscot Bay, and if you look at some of the pictures, you'll look out in the ocean on the videos, and you will look straight out to the middle of the Atlantic. And so it's remote. No people are going out there. Very few fishermen are out there, etc. Seals, for the most part, don't like to be where people are, the gray seals. So, for example, in Sable Island, where in Canada, in 1962, they only saw 212 pups. And the reason they saw the pups then for gray seals was that they had abandoned that lighthouse out on Sable Island. When they abandoned the lighthouse, took the rescue people off and automated the light, then the gray seals had a chance to breed out there. And so they went out there and had their pups and went from there. So Seal Island provides that. Monomoy Island in Cape Cod area provides that as well. And they're pupping on Muskegon Island down there right now. Very remote. It's hard to get to. And so those are the places where they would like to have their pups. Next question, do seals molt throughout their adulthood as well? Or is it just when they are a pup? They molt every year. They don't lose hair like I do, or you do. I lost a lot. But no, they lose their hair all at once. So it's like you shed all your hair and grow fresh hair back. And all the seals do that. Gray seals, you notice one of the quick facts that you have there on your page, they have a molting season from late March into early June. And you'll see some of them molting. Harbor seals uh, their mating season, puppy season's middle of May, and so they don't molt until August or so. Every seal species does this, and it's a time when most of the adults crawl out on land, haul out on land to have uh, food, or excuse me, I'm reading too many questions at once. Haul out on land to molt. It's a stressful time. They don't like to get in the water at that time. Okay. This question is unrelated to seals, but what is your opinion about what is going on with all the pilot whales that have died in Florida since December? At my count, it's been 54 dead yet, according to news reports that everyone they have checked on have completely empty stomachs. Is there a food source gone? Are they sick? I just learned today, I must have missed the news, but about the Florida uh, pilot whales stranding. But I have not any opinion about why they're stranded. Strandings from uh, harbor or pilot whales occur quite often throughout the East Coast here. We've had them here in Maine, and you've had them in the Muskegon area. So it occurs. I don't know what the specifics are for this particular stranding situation, but it, it could be that food source is gone. It could be that they're sick. Uh, it could be that somebody uh, just got into stranding shallow water by mistake and the others followed. We don't know. I don't know, at least. So we're going there. Uh, but strandings do occur. Primarily, they're whales. Are the seals active at night? Yes, seals are active at night. In fact, uh, seals will feed throughout the night, will fish throughout the night if they're swimming out there. If they're lounging around out there, they'll nurse in the middle of the night, etc. So they're on a 24-hour schedule. They don't have time to waste. They want to nurse as much as they can so they can get as much weight as they can so that they can be as big as they can, because the bigger you are when you're a pup, when you're finally weaned, the better chance you have of surviving. I can remember going out and tagging gray seals on Green Island and gray seal pups, and a weaned pup weighed about 97 pounds. He'd just been weaned, and he was a big male pup, and they would probably lose maybe a third of that weight before they went out to sea. Okay, I'm doing too many things at once here. I should just pay attention to the questions. It says, could you describe some of your field work for us? Do you spend time out in seal colonies or out in the water more than you when you're doing research? A lot of my early research was aerial surveys. Stephanie has talked to you about aerial surveys where you fly and count animals, usually taking pictures and then taking them back and hiring some undergraduate or graduate student to count the seals because it gets boring very quickly. But that's what we started out with. We also tried from the start, I told you about early 80s, trying to catch harbor seals. We've been trying to catch harbor seals and we've got it down pretty good now, how to catch harbor seals and tag them. What we use is a net seine, and we'll put it out behind a boat and let it kind of drift, and the seals get entangled in it. You've got to float on the net, so the net floats to the surface. The seals float to the surface, and you can untangle them in the boat and put your tags on, etc., and that sort of thing. One of the neat things we did a couple of years, we had a permit where we were able to capture pups that were nursing. and these would be sometimes as young as 2 days old, and we'd put radio tags or just a tag on their heads, a hat tag, and a uh, time depth recorder. And that time depth recorder, we would catch the seal pups again once, twice before they're weaned in 21 days. And when we catch those pups again, we could tell by taking the time depth recorder how often they dived, whether they were in the water, on land, etc. And it was pretty neat because some of those harbor seal pups that were less than 20 days old were going out in the middle of the bay with mom and diving down to 200 feet. And so they weren't being able to stay down as long as mom, but they were learning how to dive. And when they weren't learning how to dive and they were on land, what they were doing, they would sleep, but you would think they were sleeping, but they were practicing diving. They would hold their breath. They're practicing holding their breath. When a seal is diving, obviously they're holding their breath, but also their heart rate slows. And that's pretty neat. Your heart rate slows when you dive. Okay. Part of that question was, do I spend time out in seal colonies or out in the water when I'm doing research? Uh, I'm retired now. Gray seal colonies are available to researchers only right now. So you've got to be uh, pretty hardy and pretty lucky to have a boat in the water at this time. We've been out to the Green Island site a couple of times in January, but we've also not been out in the wintertime to Seal Island. It's pretty hard to land in any weather because of the tide surge or uh, storm surges, and it's a rough rocky landing in the wintertime. It would be terrible to land on. It would be, I think you need a helicopter to get out there now. Can you share one of your favorite SEAL stories about a rescue or an encounter? I was never in SEAL rescue or marine mammal rescue projects. You have to be trained to do that. You have to be permitted to do that. And so you need to have a particular set of skills to do that. And I was not involved in SEAL rescues or marine mammal rescues. Uh, I did see seals that were in distress at times. Harbor seals, for example, pups are born and probably before they're weaned, uh, about 10% of them are abandoned. Moms, first time moms might abandon their pup if they get scared or they don't have enough fat or they get attracted to something else. So uh, they get abandoned. An encounter, I was kayaking one time, and this was in middle of June. And at that time, uh, harbor seals are thinking about other things than their pups. And so moms would uh, be weaning their pups and also thinking about mating. And I can remember kayaking along and going by a seal colony, and adult males would be out there checking the boat out very carefully. They're much more aggressive at that time of year than other times of year. And then the other thing that was going on is you could see adult females, moms, actually trying to get rid of their pups. Pups, when they're young, sometimes ride on the back of mom, and it's what, if I ride on the back of mom, I like that. I'd want to do it as long as I could. Mom would turn around and snap at the pup, or actually bite it even, to get it off her back and get away from me, kid, type of thing. So uh, that was pretty neat to see that transition which happens very shortly, very briefly. In harbor seals, the pups, once they're weaned, oftentimes don't go out to sea right away. They hang around in groups for about a week or two. It's a great time to catch weaned pups and tag them, but then they'll go out to sea later. Okay, so that's a favorite seal story. Um, with walruses, probably one of my favorite stories with walruses is that I worked with the Russians quite a bit, and we were uh, one of the first in 1989, one of the first uh, groups of scientists from the United States to go directly from Nome, Alaska, to fly into Providence. We were the second aircraft that flew in there. And we flew into Providence and met our Russian colleagues and flew around looking for walruses, etc. Came back to Providence, and we felt we were pretty good explorers. And came back to Providence. We came back to Nome, flew back to Nome with 22 Cub Scouts from Nome that had been there for the day to celebrate the 4th of July. So that's a good story as well. Question: how many females on average will a male gray seal mate with in a season? Have there been any genetic studies to figure out if there are particularly successful males who have contributed greatly to the population? Good question. Gray seal male will hang around a female. You've seen them in a picture. One strategy is hang around a female until she comes into estrus or is ready to mate, and then move on to another one. So if you've seen the pupping season and then the mating season being spread out from mid-December through now, so there's opportunities for several matings to occur that way. Another strategy for a male is to wait in the water, and when females come down to the water, you mate with them then. And so there you might have access to more females because you're not waiting for one to get into estrus or into reproductive condition. So I'm not sure of genetic studies. Stephanie Wood be the one that would have that information. She's, if it's available, she's a population geneticist and would be able to respond to that question better than I would. Maybe she will get on and respond to that in the chat later. Okay? So it looks like somebody's writing another question. As you're looking out there now on the seals, it seems like things are pretty quiet. Things are pretty quiet right now. So it looks like somebody's writing another question. Okay. Do seals break open mussels or crabs like sea otters? Sea otters use a tool to break open a mussel or a crab, usually a rock or something like that. Seals, first of all, probably don't eat mussels or crabs, with the exceptions of a walrus. A walrus eats clams, and what they do is they have a great suction in their mouths, and so they will suck up a clam, and they can suck a clam out of its shell. And I was on St. Lawrence Island one time when some of the natives were bringing back walruses. One of the stomachs had probably 20 gallons of perfectly shucked clams in his stomach, all fresh, etc. So they don't, with that exception, I don't know of seals that eat mussels or crabs. Now, some seals eat krill, which are like shrimp, but not crabs. Okay. Question: I saw you studied Antarctic seals as well. Are they fatter or more able to handle cold water temperatures than gray seals? are gray seals found above the Arctic Circle? Second question, gray seals are not found above the Arctic Circle. They're a more temperate seal. The Antarctic seals are a little different. Females are larger than males. Here, we've got males larger than females. Females, you want to be as large as you can so you can have pups every year if you can. And not all seals have pups every year, all females, because sometimes you don't have enough energy stored to do that. Okay, so in the Antarctic, they are fatter, they're bigger seals. The gray seals are fairly good size as well, but they do tend to be bigger. And I'm going on to the next question. We're moving into our last few questions based on our time now. One of the questions is, where does the trash come from that we see washed up on Seal Island Beach? There are a variety of sources for that trash. Some of it, I noticed when about 2 hours before we started, that there was a few lobster pots floating around out there. Sometimes the trash is from fishermen that the gear gets away from them and goes up on shore. We have a great tourist season here in Maine, sailing season in the summer, and some of that trash gets up there on the shore. And so it comes from a variety of sources. Sometimes people go out and pick up the trash, and there are a variety of areas around here that people do beach cleanup days. One of the questions, which in 2 minutes might be a difficult one to answer, is how has climate change affected the animals that you're familiar with? Probably the easiest answer to that is the walruses have had to change where they rest between times that they're out feeding because the sea ice has moves way beyond the continental shelf up in the Chukchi Sea, and when that happens, they can't rest on the sea ice to feed on the continental shelf. They have to rest on land. So that's the easiest answer to that of the animals. Seals, gray seals, and harbor seals, I don't think have been affected by the climate change as well. Remember when I talked about the middens on North Haven Island and gray seal and harbor seal bones there? They also had swordfish beaks, which indicated the water was warmer. So it's not necessarily that they're need cold water. They can be in warmer water. And I presume this is an open question. Are we doing better in making oceans safe for the mammals? Marine Mammal Protection Act and Endangered Species Act have done a lot for those marine mammals that are in U.S. waters. Canada has similar laws that restrict kill in some instances, and we are making them safer. The International Whaling Commission has regulations and has stopped a lot of whaling, so that has helped as well. But we've always got more we can do, and there will always be danger for marine mammals from people because boats, ships strike our right whales off the coast of New England here. We have fish gear that no matter how hard a fisherman can work, they sometimes catch a marine mammal. And so that is a fact of life. I know that one story that there was a person out at Mount Desert Rock, fisherman out near Mount Desert Rock, that was delayed fishing because he had white-sided dolphins all around his boat. And he couldn't wait any longer. And he put the net in the water, he pulled it back out, and pulled up no white-sided dolphins. He had a lot of cod, but he also had harbor porpoise. So it happens. Last question, what is the most useful thing we can do to help them? I would say probably lobby your congressman to get more money for both rescue and for research and for management of the, so a lot of the populations, we don't know what size they are, etc. There's some species that are very rare, and we don't know what happened or whether they're even the same species sometime. Okay, so that was the last question, and I've enjoyed this. It's been a unique experience, uh, and I appreciate the chance to get to talk to you. Um, Thanks for everything. Appreciate it very much.